Hello. Thanks for letting me know, Jonas. Can you hear me now? Uh, okay. Yes. Now you can hear me. Okay. I'll get started. Thanks for letting me know. Um, so, hi, everyone. I'll just repeat what I said and maybe we'll see what we can do afterwards about it. So, I'm going to present as slidev. So, this is like the tagline is light and developers, right? So, has a mix of those and why I think it's a good option for your next presentation. So I'm going to do a bit of 360, an intro there. There's also, this is my whole screen. I'm also going to be trying to do some live demos or show a bit how it works behind the scenes and how it would feel to build slides on this. If you have any questions, feel free to drop in the chat. So like the comments of no sound were very helpful. Thanks a lot. So let's just get started. For the people in the live stream, I think most people know me, but if you don't, if you wonder in this video afterwards for some reason, some quick information about me. So my name is Murilo. I'm from Brazil. I live in Belgium. I have a mechanical engineering background, master's in artificial intelligence. I have some certifications, which is not super relevant. Um, I'm a Python. That's my main go-to language. I'm also trying to learn more about Rust. I think chickens here in Belgium. Some people have chickens in their house. I think it's a great deal, and I think you should get one too. This is just a bit of fun facts about me. I'm also one of the organizers of the Python user group. So if you like to participate or anything, feel free to let me know. Hit me up. My contact information is also here. I'm also participate on the Data Topics Unplugged podcast. So as well, if you would like to join, if you like to see, we also live stream things on YouTube. So feel free to check us out. And when I'm not doing these side things, my own tech lead for the AI business unit at Dataroots. So that's just some quick info. What we're gonna see today, we're gonna do a 360 of slidev or slidev. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. We're gonna see again the live demo, so a bit of action. How does it go? Uh, some other things that may not be on the demo slides that they have is like some diagrams, animations, editing, presenter mode, and then I'm gonna finish off with why I think that this is a good tool for you to try it out. All right. So this is the documentation from for slidev, right? So indeed, presentation slides for developers. They have quite a lot of things here. So in the guide, you can see why they are saying slidev, and it has the whole pitch. Let's say, right? It's feature rich and etc. etc. But there's a lot more to it, right? That I'll cover here. So you can create your own themes. You can have some add-ons. You can customize some things because in the end, well, maybe I'll just dive in and say that if you ever heard of Review.js, um, it's a similar idea, let's say, right? So even here, this presentation is actually running on my browser on localhost, right? So because it's JavaScript, CSS, and all the goods, it's very customizable, right? It has already a lot of components, a lot of built-in stuff, and then they have a lot of showcases and stuff on GitHub that you can check it out as well, right? So instead of going through the whole the docs, right? Like this is the demo slides that they actually have on their once you start a new project, or actually they have here hosted on their domain, I guess, right? So just to go quickly over what they offer, and also this is also a good plug to say that if you want to share your presentation as well, this is also a good way to do it, right? You can just kind of serve it as a static page, and then everyone that has access to a web browser can actually take a look. It may look a bit different sometimes, and I'll go to that later, but yeah. So press space for the next page. You can also click on it, right? It is text based. So actually, I'll show here as well. This is my presentation, the one I'm sharing right now, right? And you're gonna see that it's basically a Markdown syntax. Markdown also accepts some HTML tags here and there, but for the most part, it is like a list here, just like you have on Markdown, right? So the headings and everything. This is the default with slidev, right? Which is not, I think, the default with Vue.js, but you can do it with the Review.js as well. There's a lot of, they also have this in between three lines here to kind of have like the config. I think it's front matter a lot of the times that is referred to, and they also have this here on the very first slide to kind of show what's the theme that you're using, etc., etc. Right? So again, themable, as you can tell, this theme is different from this one, and we'll go a bit deeper into this. Developer friendly, so it has a lot of the stuff you can also see from Vue.js, not everything. It is interactive. You can actually record stuff, and maybe I can even show you here quickly. For example, you can see me. I'm gonna remove myself from the stream. All right. So yeah, you can do recording. You can export this as PNGs. So audio is gone again. This is not good. I'm not sure. What could it be? Oh, okay. I'm not sure what this was. I didn't do anything this time. Thanks, Jonas. Thanks for letting me know. I'm just going over here. I'm not sure exactly when it was cut off, but you can record. You can export it as different formats. Like I said, the whole hostable static page, and you can hack it, right? Everything is open source and actually go. Table of contents, again, they actually give you this. This is what I had on my agenda, right? And actually, if you click on the slides, it kind of shoots you to where you want to go. There are some short keyboard commands. When you click on stuff, you can actually add animations, and you can see the stuff here that I've shown. You have a dark mode, you have a light mode, and you can actually configure this on your theme as well. For the data roots one, we also have dark and light mode. Okay. And this is not what I wanted to do. All right. Also the transition, right? So you see before we were just switching, sliding left to right. You can also say, okay, I want this one to be top to bottom, etc., etc. Code highlighting. You can also have code highlighting here. You can highlight a block or a line. You can add arrows as well. We're going to go through that. And a lot of stuff, right? So if you're showing code in your presentation, I think this is also a good way to kind of pinpoint what you're looking at. It has components, right? So again, this is a counter component that they have. So you can increment this so it is interactive. As I click, it goes up and down, right? And you can actually create your own, right? So this in the end, slidev is built on Vue. So if you know Vue, you can actually create a component fairly easy. I mean, I don't know Vue, but I've created a component already. It's a bit hacky, so help is welcome. They also have like these tweet before Twitter was called X cards here as well. So if you want to embed these things, you can also do that very easily. Even YouTube. Oh, yeah, forgot about that. So theme, like I said, on the first slide, you can actually put if you're on the default, if you're on the serif. There's a whole bunch of themes on the theme gallery. You can create your own. You can put it on GitHub so people can install it. This is what I did for this one. But yeah, animations, I haven't used this because this looks very complicated, but it looks very nice, very sexy, right? So with Vue Motion, you can actually have these nice animations here, right, with the SVGs. So it is something, if you do know, I think it's a nice feature, but realistically, this takes so long that I just never got to it. Latex, or LaTeX actually. You can actually have this as well with the KTech support. So you can actually add all the things that you would expect, and you can also highlight it, right? This is not something I use a lot, but indeed, if you have any need, I think this is also a very cool feature. Diagrams. This one I use sometimes. So this is with Mermaid.js, and I'll show a bit more later. But you can also have these diagrams here. They have different types, so you can kind of put there. They have a markdown-like syntax that you can give it a try. Multiple entries. So basically, like I said before, this is one markdown file, slides.md. You can just have a whole bunch if you want and just add this as a subpage. I don't do this, but it is an option as well. So there's a whole bunch of stuff here. Documentation, GitHub, show more. So this is kind of it. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop in the chat and I'll try to pick it up. And again, thanks for all the comments on the audio being gone and back. What else about themes? So if you want to create your own theme, this is what I've done here. I kind of cheated. This is the theme that I'm using now. I kind of cheated because I just took this this theme that I saw that I liked, and I just changed a couple of things, like this was an SVG and I put it a PNG, etc. Right? But for example, this is on the data roots GitHub. You can actually go and just add it as a dependency here. So if you go on my package JSON, you can see I had this here, the this dependency for the slide as the Git repo. So you can do that as well, and you see that you can create a different layouts. If there's a layout that is not on the default, you can also create it like the two columns. I'm not sure if this is the default one, but the presenter one as well. All these things, right? So this is also something you can do. So if you have any questions, check it out. And again, this is the web hosted, right? So I also hosted this on the GitHub pages to for people to take a look how it will look like, right? And you have some stuff here. All right. Add-ons. So you can create your plugins, right? One thing that and this is, I think it's a very nice feature because this is just Vue, CSS, HTML, right? So anything that is prepared for those things, you can just kind of wrap it in a Vue component and just expose it. One thing I also like to do sometimes, live demos are too scary for me. So sometimes what I do is record my terminal and then I try to put it on the presentation, right, as a recording. For this, there is this nice project called Askinema that you can actually record your terminal, and then in the end, it actually shows up as a text file, right? So you can even git commit it and everything, and it's fine, right? Like it's not a big thing. And they also have the player that is also open source, Askinema player, right? That they show here how you could embed on an HTML page. So basically what I did here, which is again a bit hacky to my taste, but I just kind of wrapped this in a Vue component and I exposed it as a slidev add-on, right? So this is how you would use, right? And I can actually show here if you go to components, no, not components, sorry. Example MD. You can see that this is really what I'm doing here as well, right? So I specify the font because my terminal has some special fonts and it wouldn't be rendered correctly. But basically, that's all you can do. You can pass the props, which is also something that is available on the player itself. I didn't create this, right? The way it looks, and I'm going to put this on light mode for now. You click, and then basically it starts recreating what you typed on your terminal. This is not a video, right? So you can actually select, and if you go ahead and inspect, you should see the stuff changing as you go. Let's see. Right? So it's not really it's not a video at all. You can actually copy paste characters, right? Which means that if you add this to your presentation, you can version your recordings. If you go here on public and casts, you see the format, which is basically like JSON lines, like, see? Has timestamps. I don't know exactly how it all works in the back. I do know that the player, and this is just a side note, is actually Rust exposed to JavaScript. But yeah, I think it's a cool project to check it out, and it's very hackable. Again, everything is open source. And maybe another more realistic example. Let's see. On a present, I recently or last year in a presentation, I also included this here, faster Python with friends. So you can see this presentation was about how to make Python faster, right? And then I'm trying to benchmark. And for that, I actually used slidev, Askinema, right? So this is using the component that I created. And then you can see the terminal here. You can see the fonts are rendered nicely and all these things there, right? You can skip ahead. Also, if there's some idle time, because this actually took 30 seconds, but the player would actually cut the idle time for you. So it's really cool. And I think it's a nice way to kind of give the demo feeling, but it's not really a demo, right? You can kind of talk through, pause, select, etc., etc. So really cool, really cool. That's kind of it for the live demo. No, not really. There's a bit more. Some things that I just wanted to show a bit more here, and I'll start by saying the editing mode. There's a lot of stuff here that you can see when I'm on my local host. One of the things is to edit, and this is also how I usually prepare my presentations. As you hear, you can actually change stuff, right? And as it goes, this should go. Is this the curse of the demo? Sorry. I hadn't started the presentation. So okay, there we go. So now this is the live presentation, let's say. Um, or not live, but now the server is running. So now I can actually add stuff here, and then you can see that it changes, right? So if I want to add an image, we can take any image here. Copy image address, right? So I can go here, source, right? So I can add it here. Also, this is the CSS for this. It's Windy CSS, which is based on top of Tailwind. So I can actually use pretty much everything that Tailwind has. So if I do scale 90%, I can actually do this. I can do 40%. I can change the height to, I don't know, 20, right? And you can see how it changes as you go, right? So I'll talk a bit more about the CSS part because this is not something that I'm super expert in, but this is something that kind of forced me to learn it, right? And you can do as you go, which is really nice. Also, if there's something you want to go to the code, you can just click here on this icon, and then it will open your editor, right? And this is where I am, right? What else? What else? What else? So this is the editing mode, right? You can do this there. Maybe since I'm talking about the editing, I'll also talk about the animations part. One thing you can also do, so there's the fancy SVG animations, right? Which I don't use a lot. But one thing I do use quite a bit is these click animations here, right? So you can add this click, and then basically, as soon as I hit the next slide, it will show, right? So if I want to add a bit of more interactivity throughout my slides, I can actually do this. So I can, instead of pointing at stuff, I can just kind of talk about it and reveal the elements as I want. Another thing that you could do, right? So if you have a whole bunch of elements in a list, you can just use clicks instead of click. And then here, I can just kind of go hi, list, right? And then as I go, and you see here, click 1, I have this. Click 2, I have the first bullet point, second bullet point, third bullet point, and then I go to the next slide, right? So these are used quite a bit actually, and usually I add at the end the clicks. Let's say the animation, I just have everything as I want, and then I start in the clicks and what I want to say first, etc., etc. But I think this is quite handy, and it doesn't really slow me down a lot, right? I don't have to have this open. So if I don't have two screens, I don't have to have this open, or I don't have to kind of split the screen here to have these two things, right? I can just kind of have all in one, and I edit as I go. And also, even if I wanted to add another slide, I could just add the triple hyphens here, and it would do just fine, right? So I think it's pretty convenient still. It doesn't really slow me down. I can be productive. I don't have to worry too much about all these things. But it still kind of forces me a little bit to learn a bit more about CSS and HTML. One last thing about the animations, right? I showed this is basically Tailwind. It's not really Tailwind. It's Windy CSS. One thing you could also do is to use the CSS animations, and this is actually what I did here. So this is spinning because you have this animate spin, and this you have this animate bounce, right? So it's very easy to add this. If I delete this, you see that it stops, and if I go back, you see that it's spinning again. So it's another little thing that you can do just to make it a bit more fun and catch a bit the attention. What else? Drawings. So I think I can close this for now. You can draw. So if I go here, you see you have different colors. You can actually add shapes, right? You can add circles, arrows. This is just a straight line, or you can actually have like free form, right? Right now I'm using my mouse, so you see that every time this is the same width, let's say, and I'm saying just keep that in mind. It will be more relevant later. If you want to keep these drawings, you can actually just change the configuration here in the beginning. You can do drawings persist to true, and then you keep this as an SVG, right? So if you want to draw something on your slides and I don't have an image for this, you can just kind of do this and you stay there. Usually I don't do this, but it is an option. And I noticed that we're going backwards, right? There's still diagrams to talk about. One cool thing that I will say about the drawings is that if you do have an iPad, which I do have one with me here, you can actually use it. So how do we do this? First thing I'm going to do is stop this for a second, and then I'm going to run slidev with the remote flag, right? If I do this, from now it shows like it's all the same. looks like nothing has changed. But now I can actually go to this, which is my local network, right, in the presenter, and I can see this. If you don't want to type this, actually, slidev has this QR code that it prints in your terminal. Then what I can do here is go on the iPad, scan this. I need to put the... All right. I'll also change the way this looks for now. There you go. And now, again, here it's still running. I have this. I have this here on the iPad. You see that I already went to the presenter mode. And then if, well, maybe I'll go a bit out of the presenter mode for a second, right? If I'm just like this, I can just kind of change the slides normally with my finger, right? Like I swipe, and then just like that. If I have it on presenter mode, which I'll put it again. If I have this on presenter mode, which actually I still haven't shown, I realize this now. What I could do is use this as a remote, right? So if I change the slides here, you notice that here it also changes, right? Another thing too that I can point, let's see if this works. Hello, can you hear me? I think there was a connection issue. I'm just gonna assume that you can hear me. So here, if you're on the presenter mode, you can actually change the slides, and then you actually follow the slides that you change. So you can use this as a remote. And also, if I press this here, you can also control the cursor as you go, right? So it's handy. One thing that it also is clever enough, when I'm using my finger, it will just change slides, right? Or use the mouse. But if I take my Apple Pencil, and then if I draw here, you can see that it changes directly, and it also has the pressure sensitivity, right? So I can actually do thicker, and which makes the writing look more fluid, which I also think it's pretty cool. I'm gonna stop this because I'm not sure if this is straining my network, and I'll go back to just the local one. And I realized as well that I haven't talked about the presenter mode. So this is the presenter mode here. So basically you show, and I'm gonna go back to how it was before. And then what you can see is that you have the current slide, you have the next slide as well. So hold on. So you have the current slide, you have the next slide, and you can also add some notes here. So if I say, hi, these are some notes. The way that they are saved on the Markdown is just as a comment, and the very last comment becomes notes. And yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. If I point something here and you had another tab open, you would still highlight what you want to highlight. So yeah, pretty cool. One last thing. So if I go back to editing, so now the diagrams, finally, right? If I do here, actually, I'm going to do this here because otherwise it complains. If I go here and I do, I think mermaid, save, see if this goes. Yeah, mermaid. And now let's go to mermaid.js. Let's look at some examples. That one is a nice one. I can copy and paste this here. And then you can see that you have a nice diagram, right? This is maybe a bit big. Maybe if you do like, I don't know, git graph. Let's hope this is small enough. Yes, right? So you see this here, this kind of creates for you, and you have a whole bunch of stuff here on the mermaid.js, right? You have git graphs, mind maps, timelines, all these things here. So if you have some diagram and you want it to look nice and look the same, you can also use this language, let's say, to do these things. All right. I know this was a bit rocky. I'm almost done, I promise. Um, Hopefully it wasn't too choppy and my audio didn't go out as much as I think it may have. So this is kind of it, all the features that I wanted to show. Why do I think that slidev is a good choice for you? Why do I use it? It has some cool features. I hope that we all agree on this part. I also like because I'm a bit picky, right? When it comes to like, oh, are these things aligned? Is this contained, right? So it kind of looks the same. It's CSS, right? So everything's going to be aligned. You can be guaranteed of this and you don't spend too much time. Also, for me, whenever I'm making slides, sometimes I go a bit too crazy all over the place. I want to add images and I want this and this and this. Sometimes I realize that I don't put any text, which is not bad for all the presentations, but sometimes I do think that text helps people make sure, because if I say something weird or my accent is too bad or something, then I think having the text there is actually quite helpful. And it gives more structure, right? Because it's not so flexible as Google Slides or something. It does give me the structure that I think I need to do a good presentation. So it's a good trade-off between those two things. I think it's easy to share, right? Like you don't need to kind of send slides or anything. It's on a website. People can check it out wherever they are. The caveat here, and I don't know if you noticed on the iPad, the font was a bit different because the fonts available for the iPad are different as the ones I have here. But it is something that you can do quite easily, I would say. And I think this is the main selling point for me, right? Like slidev is mainly Markdown, so it's too fast to do things, and maybe there's like 10% that you need to use some HTML, maybe to include an image, maybe to do this or that, maybe to align some items. And I think by that you also need to use CSS, I guess, if you're aligning items and whatnot, right? And I think that little kind of forces you to be a bit more comfortable with it, which if you want to do any like apps or front end stuff, I think it's also super handy to know more about these HTML and CSS, right? So and to end, I guess, is like sometimes I'm too perfectionist. Let's say I want everything to be perfect before I actually ship something. So if I have I don't know, a little app, right, I want to make sure that everything, all the details are polished, and sometimes that's actually counterproductive for my learning, I believe. But these are just slides, right? So I see everything here as a one-off, right? Like if I want to add 3 break lines here to make sure that I have the space, maybe that's fine for this one, right? Because it's just this. I'm not going to reuse this later. And I think by having this mentality, I actually learn way more. And I think slidev and making slides gives you this nice um, opportunity to do that, right? So with that like get done mentality, basically just keep swimming, just keep going forward. I believe that I learned way more about these things than I would have if I tried to either sit down to do, I don't know, to build an app or to do this and this and that, right? So even building these components, I've learned quite a bit, which is fun, but it didn't feel like overwhelmingly amount of work, right? So that's pretty much it. Thank you again. I apologize if my audio went out, if my internet dropped or something like that. Hopefully, it wasn't too bad. If anyone has any questions, I'll hang out. How long do you usually spend? Oh, let me show this here. So Jonas is asking me how long do I usually spend tweaking the layout? Not a lot. Well, not a lot. Maybe if I wanted to give you a number, I would say 10%. But usually, like this slides, I think I made it in 1 hour. So 10% of 60 minutes, 6 minutes. I don't know. Maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. So not a lot. But it depends on what you want to do, right? Sometimes if you want some things that are tricky, right? If you want one image to be slightly overlapping with another, then maybe you can do like a negative margin, or maybe you can do this, but maybe you need something more complicated, right? And then if you want to do something more complicated, then you spend more time. But a lot of the times I'm like, this is good enough for me, right? Maybe I'll share again the screen just as an example. Very simple slide that I like, this 2 columns pattern, right? If I go here, also the template already has this kind of shortcuts with like this dot dot left, dot dot right, so you can kind of indicate what you want to be on the left and the right side. Everything above is just showing. So if I do this, it's just the whole line, right? So it goes over. And at the bottom, I can actually do bottom, and I can do this, right? And again, this overflows, right? Maybe even easier is if I do this background blue, right? Then you can see that I'm actually going over the boundary of this thing, right? So, and maybe how does this relate to your answer? I don't know if it's clear, but to me, it's like there's a lot of stuff that the template kind of gives you already that you don't have to do. If it's something that you find yourself doing quite a lot, you can just kind of change the theme to include this for you. So you do it once, and then you can have some clever ways of specifying what you want to wear, right? So for example, let's say instead of 2 columns, if you have a lot of times that you have to do 3 columns, maybe that's something that you can specify. Maybe here, instead of having to specify the flex justify center item center, which just basically says center this vertically and horizontally, maybe you can actually include this on your theme, right? So it's not a lot of time. Of course, it depends always on what you want to do. And usually, if I spend too much time on something, and then I realize that maybe I shouldn't go for this, and maybe it's not worth it, right? But it's all about little by little. If anyone has any other questions, I'll be happy to answer. Um, Also, if you have anything you would like to well later, any questions, feel free to just reach out to me. Right? I think I also included my contact there. Alrighty, then I think I'm gonna call it. Apologies once again for the not steady connection and the audio stuff. Hopefully, it was still interesting. Hope to see you next time. Ciao. Oh, almost turned off. One question here. Just use the grid functionality of CSS Tailwind. No, yeah, you can do that, I suppose. Again, I'm not an expert by any means with Tailwind CSS. I do think there's a lot of stuff you can do different ways, and you can use the grid functionality, I believe. But again, and yeah, I think it also says that if you know Tailwind, there's also a lot of stuff that they already do for you, right? You're not writing CSS from scratch. All right. If there are no more questions, I will call it. Thanks for joining. Hopefully next time, better connection. I'll talk to you next time. Ciao.